Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with Adam Allred. Adam has spent over 2 decades in the trenches of door-to-door sales, recruiting, training, and leading thousands of reps across the country. He's built and exited multiple companies for multi-million-dollar valuations, proving that grit, discipline, and leadership still win in today's world. After years of building empires in pest control and marketing, Adam has stepped into the social media space with a mission to gather men, build tribes, and resurrect the kind of masculine wisdom that only men can pass to each other. He's the founder of DGHboy, a movement aimed at helping men conquer themselves, lead their families, and leave a legacy. Adam is married to Kylee, and together they're raising 4 kids, with the 5th one on the way in Jan. For all the businesses he's built and the battles he's won, being a husband and a father is the most important and sacred one of them all. In this week's episode, expect to learn about the attack on masculinity, healthy relationships, propaganda, extreme feminism, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Adam Allred, welcome to the podcast.
Blake, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Mate, there's a lot for us to talk about today. I can't remember when I crossed your socials. I reckon about 12 months ago, but I resonate deeply. So I'm looking forward to talking all things marriage, masculinity, men, and kind of everything in between. But before we get started, can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel of who you are and what's got you to where you are today?
I grew up in Utah. Well, I didn't grow up. I was born in Utah. My old man was in the service. I grew up kind of traveling all over the world when I was a kid. And when I got done traveling with my parents, was going to school, I came out to Utah. And in Utah, they have this whole culture that's centered around door-to-door sales, because you get these guys that do these Mormon missions. They're knocking doors for 2 years. They figured out how to monetize it. And so in Utah, it's this huge industry of hiring these like college-age kids to go knock doors. So I did that for my whole college career, made great money. It was an awesome experience. And then I rolled into out of college with an English degree and nothing I was really passionate about. So I started up door-to-door sales companies and built them up. I've got some business partners. We've done them for the last 20 plus years. It's been awesome. It's been really successful. But over the years, I've hired literally thousands and thousands of mostly young men, some young women, to go out and do the hardest job they've ever done in their entire lives, knock on doors all summer long in different parts of the country. And I've trained them, I've managed them, I've tried to keep them alive so they don't quit. And I've found over the years that the batch of upcoming kids each year, the resilience, the grit, particularly within these young men, isn't there anymore. Most of these guys, they don't have a lot of framework for what it means to be a man. They want to be, they have the desire to do it, but they really haven't been raised like some of the older generations have. And so that kind of got me going. That and going through my divorce got me feeling like I should start sharing something on social media about it. And so I just started making some content, things that I thought would help guys, stuff that I'd learned from the hard knocks and from doing door-to-door sales for 20 plus years. And I wanted to pass some of that stuff on to other people and just see if it would resonate. And I had no anticipation of it blowing up. I thought, if 10 people liked it, that would be a win. Honestly, I went in with no expectations. And I think my 5th reel, my buddy would set up a camera, record it. He would send me the files. I'd cut it up. I had no idea. I'm not an editor. I'd just cut it up. And like my 5th reel got like 2 million views. And I was completely blown away, like totally shocked. And it went from being something that I was just kind of interested in helping within, and this is longer than what you're asking for, and I will wrap it up right here. But it went like from that to I started getting inundated with messages from young men, older men, all across the spectrum. Messages like, dude, you're real today. Help me fight to stay alive another day. I was thinking about ending it today, and then I watched your reel, and you know what? I can fight another day. Sorry, I might get a little emotional. And that completely shifted it from something that I was just interested in to something that like became really, really passionate about, and something that felt like I had a moral obligation to keep sharing stuff with people because it was meaning something to them. And I was completely surprised. I still am. I still am surprised anybody listens to me. I'm just some guy that shares his musings on, social media. But it's been a really humbling, a really, for me, a really inspiring last couple of years doing it.
There's even plenty in what you just said that I want to explore, but I'm going to take you left for a second down a very slippery slope, pun intended. When you were in Utah, did you ever experience any soaking?
When I was coming up, soaking didn't exist. I'd never even heard of it. So when I was in college, I think it's a college thing. I don't think grown adults do any of that. Because I'm surrounded by young men and young women in Utah all the time. It's a running joke now. We always talk about it. So no, when I was coming up, it didn't exist. I'd never heard of it. And since then, I still can't believe anybody does it, but I'm assured people do.
It's yeah, it's a recent learning from an American friend as well about Utah, soaking Mormons, and I think they've got quite a big swingers scene, from my understanding. Is that true from what you've seen? Pineapples
I've
out
got a
the, out the
couple. I've
front
got a
door.
couple of. Hey, we're getting it all out there, and you've heard a lot about Utah, so I'm actually really impressed. Most people just think Mormons and polygamy. um, I have a couple of friends, I'll be honest, that dabbled in that when their relationships were coming to an end, and I had kind of the front row seat to get out the popcorn and watch it happen. Um, I don't know how big it is, but I definitely know there's a community out here because I've had a couple of buddies involved in it. And so that's all.
Can you join any dots? Can you work out what it is about Utah that attracts the poly group, or some people these days might call it radical monogamy, but I'm pretty sure it's called polyamorous. But is there anything about Utah that you think draws people there?
For polyamorous reasons?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I mean I don't. Yeah, you know more about Utah
I'll come back
than
to
I do
you. I'll come back
apparently.
to you on that one. Um,
Yeah.
how do you see the state of masculinity at the moment? Because you've got some really good thoughts online. How do you see it as it stands at the moment?
I mean, I think it's an absolute disaster right now, and there's a number of reasons for it. Like, I think it's a super complex issue, but I think the main issue is the attack on masculinity and the destruction of the traditional family. So the breaking down of traditional family roles, and I know that's a whole issue. People are gonna freak out about the patriarchy. We hate the patriarchy. We got out of the dark ages and now we're liberated. And the funny thing is when people say that, I'm like, nobody's happier. So like, yeah, we did make strides and we needed to make strides, but that we tried to throw everything out, the baby out with the bathwater, is where we really got things screwed up. And I think a lot of that stemmed with the rise of feminism. This idea that men are toxic, women don't need men, the family is a prison for women, and that women are encumbered with children and that they should be liberated. And all of that stuff is just so bizarre because 85% of men hate their jobs.
Mm.
85% of them, they do it because they got responsibilities. They got to take care of their people. They hate going to their jobs. They do it for a purpose. And the fact that women wanted to race into that mess, there's so many. I see it on social media all the time now where they're lamenting it. Who fought for us to have the right to work? And there's a lot of polling that shows that women want to go back to being traditional. Most women want to have uh, they want to have a traditional man. They want to be able to stay home. Most women, they want to have kids. They want to raise kids. I think one of the big problems right now that we're facing is that a lot of these women that want that, they don't want to be a traditional woman. So they want to have their cake and eat it too. So they want to have a traditional man that provides for them, but they don't want to have being obligated to bring anything to the relationship. And I think that's a big problem. But I think ultimately, sorry to answer your question, it's getting a little long-winded. When we started removing men out of the home, or when we started mitigating their role as the father to some, silent bystander, really what we did was really remove masculinity, and now we're seeing the rise of toxic masculinity. We're either seeing guys that are just absolute predators, that have no use, everything they're doing is for a selfish reason, or we're seeing these boys that never grow into manhood. They just, I call them the lost boy generation, because they've been raised by women, and women, they don't raise men they're attracted to, because they raise boys to be yes men. They raise boys to be nice to women. And then they roll into a school system where the authority structure is females. And so they come into adulthood and they're like, one, they don't know what a man looks like. And two, they've been conditioned their whole life to be nice guys and to be yes men to the females. And then all these women are like, where have all the good men gone? And I'm like, well, you killed them. You killed them when you attacked masculinity. And I'm not blaming women for this, because men were asleep on their watch. And if men are going to lead, and I think men have the right to lead in society, then they have to own what's going on in society. And so we have to say, wherever this whole thing started with men being bad, and removing men from the household and liberating women from families, it really is a masculine issue at the end of the day. Like we were asleep, at the wheel, and now we're seeing like the horrific consequences of it, and nobody's happy. Women aren't happy. Men aren't happy. Everybody's just kind of mad at each other, and everybody's throwing stones at each other, and it's a whole mess. What's your take on it, though? I'm curious.
I'm pretty, mate, almost word for word, because I did a podcast on this 4 or 5 weeks ago, this exact topic, because it's blown up here in Australia. It's been lingering for a long time, but there was a young fella who did a podcast, and he didn't get his wording quite right, but essentially he was talking about that, wanting to be protector, provider, and again, his wording wasn't perfect. It was a long way off, but it fucking blew everything up. And so a mate and I did a podcast. He's big on traditional masculinity. I'm probably not as sold on traditional masculinity in terms of my partner and I work, but definitely masculine, feminine dynamics. And I buried myself in it for like 2 weeks, and spent way too much time in the comment section. And it was disgusting. It was disgusting the way that women spoke about men. It was disgusting the way they spoke about traditional roles. And I think, to your point, which I wanted to kind of pull apart, I think there's such a rigidness in their understanding of traditional roles that they think they'll go backwards with their own evolution in terms of suppression and, a lot of the things that weren't necessarily right about the, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. But what does it look like to be maybe a little bit more updated with the traditional roles and traditional path? But mate, it's been on heat here for the last 2 months, and obviously it's felt like it's been lingering for the last 6 or 7 years, at least in this undertone. But how would you? What would a 2025 traditional roles look like? Because I'm guessing a lot of people have the fear of what was formerly a traditional partnership or relationship, and for that reason they think we're going to go backwards. But what for you would be a 2025 traditional roles relationship?
Between a man and a woman, or you mean just the role of being a man in this time period?
No, a man and a woman.
Well, I think every relationship is unique, and every relationship has to have its own dynamic. So I don't think there's like a one shoe fits all, first of all. I just think what generally seems to be the healthiest situation, because I believe that marriage, we get into relationships because relationships are meaningful to each other. Like we as humans, we need to have interaction. We need to have healthy relationships. But when we're talking about marriage, we're really talking about kids. Like that's what marriage is about, in my opinion. And so what I would say is, what's the best situation for children? And it's going to be not two parents working. I don't think that's the best situation for children. I think it's going to be.
Do you know what? It's not even a thought. Just to jump in really quickly, it's research. Erica,
there's so much statistics. Yeah, absolutely.
You can't even. I don't even know how you could possibly argue against it. The research is so clear that to outsource your parenting, especially in the first 3 years. And can't remember her name, Erica, someone has done like extensive research on it. You can't even argue with it.
Now, people will though, because nobody cares. Like, especially on, so many people, it's just about how they feel. Their feelings are reality. So data, information, what they can actually observe in the world around them doesn't really exist because their feelings trump everything. So people will argue it. But yeah, I think if you're going to get into a relationship, get into a relationship. People should have whatever relationships they want. If you're going to get married and have children, then you're really making a relationship about raising those children well. I think that's the primary responsibility. And so the best framework that I see is a man who goes out his front door, he protects, he provides, he comes home and he provides leadership, provides discipline, he provides structure. These are traditional masculine qualities. And you have a woman that's able to stay home and stay in her feminine energy where she doesn't have to be in the world competing with Joe Schmo for the $5, $2 an hour raise. She doesn't have to be answering to a boss. She doesn't have to have somebody who tells her when she can take maternity leave or when she can go on vacation. She can really devote herself to spending time with the children. And that'll get a lot of pushback from a lot of these females out there who are like, oh, so you just think women should, they're just good for staying home with the children. The interesting thing is that like I was a single parent for a while, and for a number of years when I went through the divorce, I had 3 kids from my first marriage, and I'm a business owner, and I love what I do for work. Absolutely love it. I'm passionate about it. It gives me so much energy. I've been really successful at it, but I know what it's like to be a parent by myself, a single parent. I know what it's like to work and to have that comparison. There is so much more value being a parent than working, even doing something that I love. The return on the investment of my time with my children trumps anything that I have ever done, any type of success that I've ever had outside of the home doesn't even compare if I combined all of them to the experience that I have being a father and being able to spend time with my children. And so, um, I don't know. I just think I think it takes a lot of propaganda, and I think it takes a lot of manipulation and deception to convince women that they're going to find happiness working for some corporation that ultimately doesn't give a crap about them. And when they are gone from that corporation, no one is going to remember who they are. No one will care. No one is going to give a shit. When I'm done with my career and the businesses are gone, no one's going to care. Like it won't matter. The legacy, the return on the investment of your time, your future happiness is going to be centered around the types of families that you create and the energy that you pour into them. And so, I don't know. To me, that's what it looks like to be in a healthy relationship in 2020, a healthy marriage in the 2020s.
What do you think is at the core of someone's inability to decipher a social narrative and the propaganda that's going on with? I mean, I'll look at it. I found this fascinating. I don't know your beliefs over the last 5 years, but I found it fascinating the level of, or the lack of discernment you need to have, and the lack of connection you need to have with yourself to not buy into social narratives. But what do you see at the core of maybe how gullible people are in terms of buying into the propaganda and narrative? Like, what's going on, do you think, from a human point of view, that they are really going against their biology and their truth?
I think it happens all the time. I mean, I think we have a long track record as humans of being infinitely gullible. Like we'll believe anything, particularly if it makes us feel a certain way or if we feel like it's gonna help us fit in. I heard Bezos say once, and I'm not necessarily a huge Bezos fan, but he said something really, really profound one time. He said, people will trade the truth all day long for community. So people, it's not really about what's honest or truthful or what your biology is. For most people, it's about fitting in. It's about feeling like they're part of the crowd. And I think in our world today, the attack on masculinity is not some evolution or organic evolution of humans, that are becoming more enlightened. I think it's absolutely propaganda. I think it's absolutely concerted efforts by powerful entities that see the vast majority of humans as livestock and to be managed. And if there's a confused population that's divided, they they don't know what a man looks like, they don't know what a woman is anymore. You know, they can't even identify themselves, you know, in terms that I'm familiar with because they constantly change. They're going to be able to do whatever they want with people like that. If people are weak, we're easily manipulated, and to weaken a population, you have to remove strong men. You know, interesting. I got a buddy. He's really successful. He's kind of a gentleman rancher now. He owns a big ranch up in Wyoming, and he's got 600 head of bison up there. And I've gone up there a couple of times. I've harvested, like shot a couple and harvested the meat, brought it home for my family. It's a beautiful place. It's interesting because his herd, they have to keep the males out of the herd. So the main herd is all females and calves. Because if they have the strong males in there, the whole herd becomes harder to manage, harder to file off to the slaughterhouse, you know, because these males will get the whole herd riled up. And so they have to either kill the males or remove them from the herd completely. And when they do that, then the herd is docile and they'll do anything they're told. And I just thought, man, that is like
That's society.
this. Yeah, that's exactly. It's like I'm looking at society right now, and the farmers are these people at the top that again just see us as livestock, and they don't have any regard for our lives. They have no regard for anything that matters to us as people. We're just resources to be used.
How how's the, if there is any backlash then for you with your message? Because you, like me, I think you're probably doubled down even stronger. You're going against the main narrative in terms of masculinity, the healthy elements of it. How's the backlash, and who is it mainly from? Is it from women, or is it from docile, domesticated doormats that call themselves men?
You know, from my experience, what I have on social media, it's almost always women.
Mm.
Um, I will get women, and by the way, I have my following, which is interesting. So I'm going to wipe this off because it seems like it's a little bit blurry. I don't know if that helped at all. Maybe. The quality on this camera that I got isn't working as well as it usually does. Uh, Interestingly enough, you know, the content that share on social media is a man's point of view, talking to, you know, other men about how to be a man. Over the course of the 2 years of me creating content, my followers of women went from like 5% to like over 40% right now.
Mm.
The vast majority of the women that show up in my comment section or my content are hugely supportive of the message. I get more interaction from the women in it than from guys. But the critics, the biggest critics are almost always women. And they will criticize me on a number of things. It's always funny because if I click on their profile, it's always a cat or it's always some woman that is clearly single and looks unhappy. And then their comments are always just laced with this bitterness and this venom. Like you're not talking to a happy person. And so I think that's the big telltale sign. It's like you're criticizing me for the positions that I'm taking, which is fine. It's an open dialogue. I post something openly on an opinion openly. It deserves open criticism. I have no problem with pushback. But eh, if you're not a happy person already and you're not living your best life, then you should probably not start throwing stones at other people that are living their best life and are happy.
Dude, I get the exact same people. I had one a couple of weeks ago who just went to every post of mine that was talking about masculinity and masculine feminine and just hating on it. Did the same thing, clicked on her page, and there's her traveling alone around Europe, which, like, do what you want, but that kind of says it all. I look at something similar to what you've experienced, and I'm like, if you're following a system or a narrative that has led you to being less happy than, say, these are like, why are you following it? Because to your point, most of these, I'll go more the extreme feminist movement, not just kind of women in the general feminist movement, but the extreme ends are the most miserable people on planet Earth. So, like, what are you
Hands down.
buying? What are you buying into if you're not happy? Like, what point are you trying to make?
You know, I give relationship advice. And by the way, I'm just a guy. I'm not like some therapist. I'm not somebody trained in this. I just try and share things that work for me. And so I understand that's not going to be perfect, nor is it a one shoe fits all. But I share these, I share my insights on how to have a healthy relationship. And I'll get these women that push back on it. And no, that's wrong. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and I always ask them the same question. So you're single? Question mark. They never answer it. They just attack again because that's what they do. So it's just like, and I'm like, good luck with the cats. That's usually how it goes. Like, it's just those, that's how I reply to that. And exactly to your point, it's like, if the person you're following isn't happy, if they're not living the type of life that you want to live, then don't listen to them. And I tell people the same thing about my content. I'm like, look, if you're doing better than me, then ignore everything that I'm saying. But if there's areas where I'm doing better than you, then it might behoove you just to listen. You don't have to agree. You don't have to accept everything that I'm saying, but like, be open-minded, like to new ideas and new ways of thinking, particularly if you're not where you want to be in life and somebody else has progressed further in that area. It's like, start to listen and stop throwing stones. But it goes back to that whole programming and emotions and community, what tribe you're a part of, and it's a mess.
Trading truth for community. I've like that's stuck with me big time. What do you think is the difference between real, and I use the word real and I use the word embodied very intentionally, real embodied feminine power and extreme feminists, because they're very different in my eyes. How do you see them as different?
Well, yeah, they're complete polar opposites. So the extreme feminists, what you got to understand about feminists is that they're not really concerned about empowering women. That's where it started. That was the initial inception of feminism, was women needed rights. There's a really important book people should read if they want to understand feminism. I read it just recently, End of Woman by Gress, and she wrote it she went in initially to write the book as an apologist for feminism, and then she dug into its early, stages, and she saw like stuff that was really, really uncomfortable for her to see. The early feminist leaders all had severe mental illnesses, and the early feminist movement was hijacked by men immediately because they saw this as an opportunity to have access to a lot of women, because they could convince women that relationships and marriage was bad for them, free sex was liberating. And so you have these predators, men, that were really a big part of the formation of the feminist movement. And then there's a whole thing where it gets tied into the Communist Party, because the Communist Party saw feminism as a way to weaken traditional families and the patriarchy, to usher in a power vacuum for the state. She documents all of this in the book. And so you can read this and you can just see how quickly something that did have the right intentions of liberating women and empowering women went from that very quickly to a very, very corrosive force. And so now today, feminism has nothing to do with empowering women. It has everything to do with destroying masculinity and completely erasing femininity. That's its goal. It has no interest in anything that is feminine. It's about essentially creating the women into the very toxic men they claim to hate. And so this is a whole thing. And then, of course, it's an attack on the family. It's an attack on children and all of this. And so you have this group now of feminists that they can't even define what a woman is anymore. Like, this is how bizarre it is. And yet they're supposed to be the champions of females. So then you contrast that with what true femininity looks like. And true femininity is maybe the most powerful force on earth. It's the force that literally carries the next generation of humans into the future. It's a creative force. It's a healing force. It's this force that compounds everything that a man does. It makes him better at everything else he does when he has that type of energy in his life. And when you combine a masculine man and a feminine woman together, you create like a nuclear reactor of powerful, good energy that goes out into the world. It's absolutely beautiful to be a part of. It's absolutely beautiful to witness. And so yeah, there couldn't be a bigger difference between what feminists are and what actual femininity is, in my opinion.
I come back to people's lack of discernment to be able to sense the undercurrent under extreme feminism. And that undercurrent, to your point, doesn't feel like it's as much about empowering women as it does a fuck you to men and masculinity. And maybe it's the same lack of discernment and connection to your intuition that people have lacked over the last 5 years in terms of their decision making. Because when you come back to that, it's kind of hard to get it wrong. But mate, I couldn't have scripted that any better. Just true feminine empowerment and the way that it lights up the world. You know, like my partner is probably the most feminine person I know. And, you know, probably similar feelings to you. Like you would do anything for true feminine power. Whereas that feminist undercurrent and that undertone, you're like, get the fuck away from me. Don't come anywhere near me. And I feel so fortunate to be surrounded by true embodied feminine power, which is so different to this feminist movement with an undercurrent of man-hating. And I don't know how you feel. I don't want it fucking anywhere near me. And I feel fortunate enough that it's not at this stage. I also have a 9-week-old daughter, and I don't want that fucking disgusting energy anywhere near my daughter as well. Do you have as much passion as I do?
I have 2 daughters, and what you're saying just resonates with me so powerfully. And I couldn't agree more. It used to be that femininity, and it still is when you find it. It's just a lot harder to find nowadays. But femininity, women were these beings that were almost transcended, you know, and men, we would stop and when you see it, and you would change your life for it. Like you would lay down your life for it. You would go, you know, stand in front of a bullet in front of almost a perfect stranger, a woman, to protect her, because we as a society saw just how powerful and how beautiful femininity was, that you would protect a stranger from that as a man. Like you would stand in front of a train to protect a woman, because that's how much inspiration and power and beauty comes from a feminine woman. And now, you know, feminism, if it's not hating men, it's just this whole idea that um, that virtue is a vice. And, you know, once women started just basically becoming, you know, trucker stop bathroom stalls with every dude's name etched on the side of it, you know, we men stopped taking them seriously and started treating them as such. And then women are horrified that men are such monsters and aren't around for commitment and just take advantage of them for sex. But it's like everything women do nowadays, and I'm not talking about all women, there's great women out there, is about showcasing their sexuality, not their virtue anymore, not their femininity anymore, not their character anymore. And then they wonder why guys treat them why guys objectify them. Well, this shouldn't be a surprise, but again, to your point, like this inability to actually see or discern what's going on is a huge problem. But I think that, you know, a lot of the reasons why we can't do that anymore is because we have become such an unhealthy society that once you kind of lose hold of these things like femininity and these things like masculinity, and when we stop caring about truth and we start caring about fitting in, uh, this is just a catalyst for all kinds of bullshit to be infused, and then have the inability to be able to see it for what it is anymore, because you've already traded these things that would have kept you grounded, that would have helped you to see these things a mile away. You know, now you can't, because you're living in this crazy ass circus world of kind of your own making, and you're easily manipulated and you're easily controlled and you're easily deceived. And it's really the state of affairs for so much of where we're at right now, and in Western society. And it sounds like over in Australia as well. Are you in Australia or New Zealand?
Yeah, Australia.
Yeah.
Do you reckon, just on that, and then I want to go back to femininity for a sec. I don't know enough about history to know the answer, and maybe you do. Do you think we are more easily manipulated now than, say, previous generations? Or do you think it's like for like?
Oh, I think it's probably like climate change. It's a natural ups and downs. You know,
Oh, we're on the
I
same
think,
page with so much. We're on the same page. What do you?
yeah, I think,
I
yeah, go ahead.
don't know. I don't know if you have many good girlfriends in your world, but you know, I know you speak directly to men. I speak more so to men these days, but still very much a female component. If you're giving advice to women in this femininity space, this extreme feminist place, in terms of finding the ultimate guy, what advice would you give? Because I can very comfortably sit in the fact that none of the best blokes that I know, like top solid blokes, are interested in that extreme feminist energy. So none of them.
That's why they're all single.
That's why they're all single. They're very interested in pure feminine energy, which is the most powerful energy on planet Earth. But I always come back to, if you want to tidy up your relationship with one, the masculine, and two, feminine or extreme feminism, you can easily look back at most extreme feminists and look at their relationship with their dad as a very good rule of thumb. So I'm always like, go and sort out your relationship with your dad, because that often is a very insightful piece into how you've created this extreme feminist and also your undercurrent towards men. But what advice would you give in terms of women caught in this cesspit of extreme feminism, and then the chip on their shoulder and the undertone that comes with that, and they're wondering why they're single and they can't find a good man?
So if I understand what you're asking for good women out there that aren't already indoctrinated with feminism.
Or they're trying to find their way out, because there's going to be a lot of women over the next 5 years that are trying to find their way out, I reckon.
Jump off the bus, just get off of it as fast as you can, because it's a one-way ticket to like a hell you don't want to be a part of. Like there's no happiness, there's no light, there's no healthy energy or vibration in that direction. It's all the complete opposite of that. So how do women liberate themselves from that? I think everything is going to be about what kind of programming they're listening to, what kind of books they're reading, and the type of people they surround themselves with, because you are the product of that. I mean, at the end of the day, all of us this is like some sort of biological technology we're operating within that is very similar to the technology that we create. Like you think the way with what you feed your brain with. And so if you're listening to feminist stuff all day long, and you're listening to that sort of rhetoric, and you're surrounded by it, and you're going to these liberal schools, and empowerment of women is to not be able to define what a woman is, and to have sex with anything whenever it comes along, and whatever else, that's going to become your reality, and you won't be able to see happiness when it's staring you in the face. You won't be able to, because you're an unhealthy person. So it's about getting yourself healthy. It is for men and women. It's really about like getting yourself in a healthy place, and that starts with the type of influences that you surround yourself with. If you put junk into your head, you're going to get a junk output. If you put toxic bullshit into your head, you're going to get that output. So start surrounding yourself as women with women that you want to be more like, women that are living the life that you want to have. And if you don't have those in your immediate proximity, the great thing about this world that we live in now is they're online. You can find really powerful, dynamic women that are healthy and happy and in healthy relationships, that are sharing their insights on social media or on podcasts or writing books. Like, go surround yourself with that and see how different you feel when you're in that type of lane and are surrounded by those types of influences versus how you felt when you were surrounded by this corrosive, infectious poison that is what feminism is in society today. It's a blight. It's an infection that doesn't let any wounds heal. Everything has to just constantly be reopened and examined and shoved in everybody's face. See, this is how bad men are. See, women have gone through this, and they just have to keep shoving it in your face, and you can't heal from that anymore. Just do that. Just take a week and listen to positive things. Like, it doesn't even have to be gender related, right? Just stop listening to stuff that's angry and bitter and corrosive, and just spend a week listening to positive things and see how you feel at the end of a week. Like, spend an hour a day or a couple hours a day listening to podcasts and reading books that are inspiring, and see how much your entire world around you begins to change.
Imagine buying into a narrative that all men are dangerous, and that it's better off to hang out with a bear in the woods than a man, which is, how do you fucking get to the place where you actually believe that narrative?
Mental illness. That's how you do it. It's
I
mental
agree.
illness.
It's a lack of
It's absolute mental
discernment.
illness.
It's mental illness. It's a lack of like connection to your own intuition and truth. It has to be.
Do you know what's way more dangerous than men? Way more dangerous. The entire world, the environment that you live in.
Yeah.
The reason why women have any safety today at all to speak of is because men went into this chaotic, dangerous world and carved out order and created safety for women so that then they could talk about how bad and evil men are. They never would have had that luxury a couple hundred years ago, a few thousand years ago, because the environment was killing everybody. And if you didn't have, as a woman, if you didn't have a man in your life, the odds of your survival, and particularly if you had children, the odds of your children's survival was drastically reduced. Every time. It was, like women did not survive on their own, and neither did children. They had to have a man to come protect them. And the reality is that hasn't changed today. It's just that the protection that they receive from men now is infrastructure. It's police departments, it's firefighters, it's ambulances, paramedics. It's men that they don't have to be married to or rely on a single man to protect them. But it's a society run by men that still keeps them protected from the environment and from other bad men. It's just such nonsensical rubbish whenever I hear that stuff.
And it's not to dismiss, oh, mate, it's a piss take. And that's not to dismiss the fact that there are very average men out there in the same way there's very average women. But to like paint us all with the same brush is the bit that continues to fire me up. And also like the endless amounts of ripping dudes that I know who are being painted with that brush. And again, how old are your daughters?
So my oldest is 13.
Crazy.
Just barely became a teenager, so that's a whole thing. And then my youngest, I have 4 kids, and I have a daughter on the way. I have a little girl that's due in January. But my youngest daughter right now, she's 7.
Yeah. So yeah, fuck, I can imagine the protector in you. But like I refuse to allow my daughter to buy into this narrative, and I will do everything to protect her from hearing that men are evil, men are dangerous, etc. Because and you would know this from your work, like if she's fed that confirmation bias, she's going to see a whole lot more of it, and then probably be drawn in some way, if that's her belief system, probably be drawn to some kind of bloke like that. So, as you're aware, like that, I get the responsibility to show her a different way. Because again, we're not dismissing the fact that there are a lot of shit blokes out there, but don't go and fucking paint us all with the same brush.
It's a sacred responsibility to raise children, but there's something different about being a father raising daughters. It's just different. And I want to go back to something you said earlier, because I think it's so important to address that. You said that behind these toxic women is a father issue. And again, we can talk all day long about how insane feminism is, and it is, and how nonsensical women are nowadays. Again, not all women. There's fantastic women out there, but the type of women we're talking about that subscribe to these ideas. But again, as men, we have to own that. Because behind every bad woman, I don't like to use the term bad, but behind every broken woman, let's say that, behind every broken woman is a father who didn't show up and do his job right,
100%.
Either because he abused her, or because he abandoned her, or because he overindulged her and didn't take that role seriously of teaching her right and preparing her for this world. He didn't invest in her, he didn't pour into her. There's a beautiful book for every dad that has a daughter out there. It's called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. It's one of the most inspiring, powerful books that I have ever read. And she's a doctor that writes it, and she just goes into like everything for a girl in her early stages of development and into her teenage years is centered around her father. Like that's where she gets her self-esteem. That's where she gets her confidence. That's where she gets her identity. That's where she gets everything that she needs is from her father. And I can speak to that. I have 2 daughters. I'm, both from my first marriage. That was a whole thing and didn't work out. My ex-wife is a good mother. She does right by the kids. But my two daughters, they have a way stronger relationship with me than they do with their mother. And it's not because she's a bad mother. It's because there's also something from fathers to daughters, there's something very unique. There's something intensely unique from daughters to their fathers. And so it's a sacred responsibility. And to the extent that women are where they're at these days, again, I just can't emphasize this enough. This is a masculine issue. Like, we have not done our jobs. We as men have not gotten our house in order. We have allowed ourselves to become spayed and neutered, or not spayed. We've allowed ourselves to be neutered, or we have become angry at the world and bitter enough that we're now, abusers, and we're predators that go out into the world, and we're seeing the consequences of it.
What a
Yeah.
privilege. Like my daughter's only 9 weeks old, and the sacred responsibility freaks some blokes out. I'm like, what a fucking privilege that you get to have that type of influence and impact, and not making it about you, but like, I love that. I love that I have that responsibility, especially in those formative years, those first 7 years, to know that I can set her up and make her life so much easier. And also, she gets to witness the relationship I have with her mum and the flow-on effect that she gets to take out into the world in terms of her dating, her future partner, her future family. Like, what a fucking privilege.
The greatest blessings that you will ever have in this life, the greatest thing that you'll ever do in this life, is creating new humans and raising them well. There's nothing more powerful than that. And I'll say something that's a little controversial, but I believe it. I believe a man who's not living his life to take on the responsibilities of others is a man who has no value.
Mm.
If a man is going into the world solely for what is just best for him and what he can get out of that, he has no value, in my opinion. Like, being a man, by definition, in my opinion, is willingly taking on the responsibility for others, whether that's a wife, whether that's a children, whether you're an uncle that takes care of his nephews, or whatever that is. Like, you are taking care of other people. It's what makes men men. A man that just shows up in this world and just, hey, this is about me and what I can get out of it, I really don't have a lot of use for. There's not a lot of character. There's not any development there. And I think in a lot of ways they're just pariahs on society. It's a whole thing for me.
Well, I think if you go into the research, and I had my own mental health challenges about 6 years ago. So I went deep into what creates, a fulfilling life. And I don't use the word happy because happy is something that kind of comes and goes. But I really deep dive into fulfillment because I never wanted to get back to where I went. But you can look at all the research and it'll always tell you the same thing. The moment that you can be of service to someone and something else bigger than yourself, you go a long way to supporting your own mental well-being. And I think a big part of why society is mentally ill and struggling with their mental health is because we've created a hyper-individualism society, of which extreme feminism also comes now. I don't need no man, Miss Independent world, which, again, all you have to do is look at the results. They're fucking miserable. So it's not working.
Well, it creates it just ushers in it. It's just the precursor to nihilism, right?
Mm.
It's like, as soon as you're not living for something better than yourself or greater than yourself, you're just living for the next pleasure that you can get, or the next, dopamine rush. That stuff gets old really, really quick. And so you're going to get into a place where you're going to be like, dude, nothing matters. Life doesn't matter. This is pointless. Have you ever seen the movie Children of Men? Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It's an underrated movie. It's
Okay.
brilliant, in my opinion. This is kind of this apocalyptic world where humans can't have kids anymore. It's like a plague. They can't reproduce, and so the population is getting older. And like, the biggest celebrity on the planet is the last born human, which is, like, at this point, like 21 or 22. So it's been decades since humans have been able to have children. And I think it just brilliantly captures what the world would look like if we weren't working to make it a better place for the next generation. It would make everything that we're doing meaningless. Like, not just as individuals, but as entire societies, and in this case, the entire world. Like, nobody cares anymore. Like there's looting going on, there's murder, there's high crime rates, everybody's depressed, like, and anxious, and the world is just falling apart because there's no longer any responsibility for keeping it together for the next generation. And I think you can take that as a framework for our individual lives. It just is a brilliant movie, and I think it's super underrated.
What are you, as someone who's well ahead of the game with me, with daughters in particular, what's the top thought that crosses your mind in terms of being a father, in terms of raising young women? I keep coming back to, and you kind of said something that really triggered, the thought for me then, is my responsibility, part of my responsibility to society is to raise a good human. And part of raising a good human is for me to continuously work on myself, knowing that I am impacting her. So I always come back to, like, up until this point, I've done probably 250 odd therapy coaching sessions, 35 odd psychedelics. And really at the core of it, that's for her. I mean, it's for my partner, it's for me, it's for my clients, it's for the people in my world. But my responsibility, or my biggest responsibility, is to raise a daughter as best I can. And in order to do that, I have to be the best version of me. What's the thought that either keeps you awake at night, or the thought that's constantly on your mind when it comes to you and your daughters?
I'll tell you probably, and by the way, you just said that brilliantly. Like I say that all the time too. A man's primary responsibility is to be the best version of himself. That's his primary purpose in life. We have a lot of side purposes, but your primary purpose is to be the best version of yourself. And that the reason is so that you can be, because until you're good at being you, until you're good at being a man, you'll never be good at being a husband or a father or anything else. And so it starts with that. And again, like you just said perfectly, it's not about you. It's about you being able to step in a role that is going to be meaningful for other people. And there's not going to be a more important role than that, than raising children, particularly daughters. The thought that I think about in my head all the time as a father of daughters, and it's not a pleasant thought, it's a dark thought, is, am I going to go to prison for having to kill somebody?
Mm,
I hate thinking that. And this is just honest. Like, I think if somebody did something to one of
I get it.
any of my kids, but
I
if
get
somebody did something to my daughter, it's not a healthy way of thinking. And I don't encourage people to do that, because it keeps me up at night. But I will literally think about that. I'll be like, if somebody did something to one of my daughters, they would be meeting God really quick.
Mm.
I would
I
be
love the way
arranging
that
that
you
meeting.
voiced that. They'd be meeting God really quick. I've never used language like that, but when I think violently about, like, burying someone, I'm gonna steal that. I like that. It's a great way to think. So, all right, all right. Let's play this out for a little bit. So, I think you and I are on a similar wavelength in terms of the indoctrinations that are happening at school and some of the agendas that are being pushed. There's a deep part within me that gets violent with the thought of some school teacher trying to question my daughter's sexuality because one day on Friday dress up she comes as a man, and I'm envisioning this, and she's only 9 weeks old. I'm envisioning a very strong conversation with a teacher that tries to question my daughter's gender. Do you do you have ways of just grounding yourself through a process like that? And do you have the similar thoughts that I'm having 9 weeks into having a daughter?
I don't know. No, I don't have a way of grounding myself. Instead, I do the opposite. I start thinking, how could I remove this person without getting caught? I have, this is horrific, but
I love
I have
it.
a buddy, a really, really close friend of mine that lives just a few blocks away from me. And he was telling me about a buddy of his that lives a couple miles away. I don't know this buddy, so I'm just kind of telling this story. And he was telling me this story like 3 or 4 years ago about how exactly what you're saying was happening to this buddy of his and his daughter. Like, a teacher had gotten in her head and started filling it with all of this nonsense to the point where she started questioning her sexuality, and then she started questioning her gender. And this woman, this parasite, was able to manipulate this daughter in a way that she started seeing her family and the people that actually cared about her as the enemy. And she
Oh
started
my God.
isolating from her to the point where her daughter went and lived at the teacher's house. And it became a whole thing. But because she was like 15 or 16, the courts wouldn't force her to go back to her family. And I don't know where that story's led. I don't know what's happened to the daughter, but where it left off was that she was in the process of taking hormones and stuff like that to start becoming a guy. Um, I think about that, and I think about what would happen to a woman like that if that she was doing that to my daughters.
We're on the same
And that's
page.
not it's not grounded, man. And part of me thinks, you know, like one of the huge problems that I have, I grew up really religious and I grew up a Christian.
Mm.
And I subscribe to much of Christianity now, but I have a really hard time with the church in general. Mainstream Christianity, I have no idea what it's like over in Australia, but in the U.S., uh, the church is really basically painted like the highest form of virtue as a man is to be soft and kind and um, non-offensive. Like this is like the modern day Christian man. And I'm not saying all Christian men subscribe to this, but I'm saying it is the majority that they have been castrated by the church into thinking that Jesus was a doormat, Jesus tolerated everything, Jesus offended nobody, which is not even remotely scripturally accurate for anybody who actually reads the scriptures and reads about Jesus. He was a dangerous man. That's why they killed him. They killed him because he was a threat to the establishment, particularly a threat to the religion, to those who claim to speak for God and speak in his name. He was a threat because he called them out. He told them they were going to hell. He overturned their tables. He constantly broke their rules right in front of their faces. He had no problem offending them. But yeah, we've created this whole narrative that Jesus was just super tolerant. And I think it's been so damaging to our society because the people that should have been watchmen, people that believe in Christian values, and I'm not saying Christianity is better than any other religion. I'm not trying to make that claim. I'm just saying if you actually study Christian values, uh, they used to be man's men, like strong men that would go and charge the beaches of Normandy, you know what I'm saying? And go like lay down their life for God and country. Like these were guys that were just absolute badasses. And now, they're terrified to offend anybody. And so part of me never wants to let go of that side of me that's dark. Like that's a good side of a man. You need to control it and you need to manage it, but you shouldn't try to eradicate it. There should be a side of every man that's dangerous. Because if you're not dangerous, you're just harmless. And if you're harmless, you're not virtuous. You're worthless, in my opinion. Like as a man, you have to have some level of you that's dangerous. And so part of me is like, I shouldn't have these thoughts. I shouldn't feel this way. But then there's a part of me that's like, nah, bro, you need to be dangerous and you need to be willing to fight and you need to be willing to die for the things that you love most in this world.
Well, I think, and maybe we can workshop it a little bit. I think the most dangerous men, I did a post on this recently, actually. I think the most dangerous men aren't a danger because they are connected to the fact that they're dangerous. It's the weak, soft, castrated, docile people that are actually more of a danger. They're the ones that go and do the shoot ups in the fucking schools in the US. They're the ones that have tried to kill off this dangerous part and essentially make it a shadow part. And then it shows up in a really shadowy way. Like, you can go and look at a whole bunch of people that think that they've cleansed themselves, and I don't want to kind of point to certain religions, but like some of them are the shadowiest people ever. So I actually, when you're talking about being dangerous, I, even as a bloke, have more trust and safety in you than a nice guy who I'm like, fuck, he doesn't know his dark side. He doesn't know where it is. And because he doesn't know where it is, he runs the risk of it showing up in an unconscious, dysfunctional, disorientated, and distorted ways. And he's the one that's going and causing domestic violence issues, not someone like you who openly speaks about it. Are you on the same page?
I'm 100% on the same page, and I take it even further. Let's talk about the majority of guys in that camp don't go shoot up schools. They
Mm,
don't. They're just um, they're just weak. And I
Yeah.
think weak men are dangerous because,
Mm,
well, think about the quote. I don't know who said it, but the only way for evil to
yeah.
prevail is for good men to do nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's what we're talking about. Like, if you are weak, you are a danger not only to your family because you can't protect them, you're not going to
100%.
stand up for them, but you're a danger to society. You are a huge part of the problem because the reason why things are so out of control, again, going back to some of the things we've already talked about, are so out of control right now in society, these subjects we're talking about, is because men weren't standing up and showing up and holding the line, being
Mm,
like, no, that's bullshit. We're not going to tolerate that. Get that out of society. We aren't going to have anything to do with this whole conversation about boys being girls and girls being boys. Oh, you think it's cute to dress up in stripper clothes and go read stories to kindergarten kids? Nope, that shit doesn't fly here. Get that out of here. There hasn't been enough of that. There hasn't been enough, dangerous men, powerful men stepping in and stopping the circus. And so we are where we're at right now because of these types of men that you're talking about. So yeah, who is more dangerous? I completely agree with you.
do you get agitated by these docile, like there's a part of me that just wants to surround myself with really passionate, strong guys and not even waste my time with these docile, domesticated doormats. But there's also a part of me that just wants to go up and bitch slap them and just like, I just want to, because they've probably got that little bit of fire in them. I'm like, I want to rough them up and like access it and bring it alive. Like, how do you feel? Do you want to bitch slap these guys or what?
I like the way you think. I don't know if I've ever thought about it like that. Now I probably will. I'll probably take that page out of that page out of your book, dude. I never, I have a lot of sympathy for those guys because again, it goes back to fathers. Those dudes didn't have good fathers. I would bet I bet a lot of money on that they had weak fathers or they had no fathers. And so most of these guys, they just don't know any better. They're just going through the programming that they got when they were a kid, and they don't know what they don't know. And it's really hard to, I don't like being around them. They're like, draining energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't hate them. I think it's more like a pity that I feel for them,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't hate him at all. I want to activate him. I want
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I
us
got
as
the message of it.
yeah.
Yeah, you want to wake them up. You want to find that
Yeah.
man that's buried beneath all of this soft, spongy exterior and like bring
Yeah.
something solid to the surface. No, I'm with you. I got what you were saying, and I like it.
It's like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's like, you got a nice guy and maybe you're working with him, you're doing some men's work or whatever, and he's nice as all polished. And then you might go into a tackling drill and you're like, you just see a different look in his eye and you're like, fuck yes, now we're on. Like we use a word like in Australia, there's a bit of cunner about him. Like there's some real fucking prime. I'm like, yes, let's go. We're on like that. And just let that energy filtrate through his relationship, his sex life, his friendships, his work, how he shows. And I'm like, yes, it's activated. And that's when I get jacked up.
Oh, I love that, man. Again, I think there's a page I need to take out of your book. This is good. Like, find that man buried there.
Yeah, he's got it in him. He's got it in, mate. There's so much. Like, I haven't even got anywhere near what I had down to talk about. So maybe down the track we could get a second run. But for those that want to find out more about you, the work that you do, where's the best spot to send them?
Yeah, come hit social media up. I'm most active on Instagram, but I'm on all platforms. Adam Allred official. If you want to be part of the party, feel free to show up and feel free to comment and weigh in your 2 cents on the issues that I discuss there. Happy to have you.
And yeah, mate, keep fighting the good fight. I know we're kind of going a little bit against the main narrative, which is always more challenging, but I have the utmost respect for those that are willing to stand strong in what they believe, especially when it means, going against the main narrative. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Hey, likewise, Blake. Thanks for having me on the show. This has been great. And I love the way you hosted this whole interview. So I hope we do another one, especially since, like, for whatever reason, my camera is like super blurry right now. So the quality's not great. I don't know if it's blurry on your end. This is the first time it's ever showed
Nah,
up
looks good.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, looks good. Yeah.
Okay, good.
We'll do a second one though. There's a lot more that we could talk about. So we'll have to get a second one in.
Looking forward to it, brother. Thanks for having me.